Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly break down the key tactical theme in Arsenal's 3-1 win over Olympiacos. When we break down the game and we do look at the board, we have Arsenal in a 4-2-3-1 and Olympiacos starting the game in a 4-4-1-1. So first we're going to break down how Arsenal looked to disrupt Olympiacos from creating attacks, and then look to the areas where Arsenal were able to get into high quality positions. What we ended up seeing from Arsenal was that they did press from the front, and they had Aubameyang pushing out to the center backs, Willian and Saka pushing out to the full backs, and in the midfield zone, Odegaard would step higher to close down Bukalakis. That would force Thomas to shift across to deal with Kamara, and then Xhaka would deal with the movement of Valbuena. However, what we ended up seeing was that Saka would tuck in a bit narrow and close down Mvia and block off the passing lane into the left back. And if the ball was shifted out into that zone, then you would see Thomas Partey shifting across to close down the left back, with Xhaka shifting across to deal with Kamara. We can look to an example where Saka steps towards Mvia, and you have Odegaard ahead of Bukalakis, Thomas shifting across towards Kamara, and you see Xhaka dealing with Bruma dropping off into a deeper central position. Here you could see Bukalakis dropping in towards the backline to create a 3v2, but Arsenal simply have Saka sticking towards Bukalakis, Odegaard pushing to Mvia, and then you see Thomas stepping forward to Kamara. And then here in an Arsenal breakdown, you witness Mvia having the time and space to play the ball into Kamara in a deeper position, and you see Odegaard initially with the central midfielder, but then he begins to shift across to deal with Valbuena, dragging David Luiz into the Olympiacos half. The issue that Arsenal encountered here was that Saka didn't step to Mvia, and now what ends up happening is that when that pass is played to Kamara, you end up seeing Xhaka stepping forward and Odegaard dropping back to deal with Valbuena, and Xhaka ends up forcing the Olympiacos midfielder back to his center back. The other alternative for Arsenal would require Odegaard to step towards Mvia, then having Thomas Partey stepping towards Bukalakis. That would see Saka dealing with the left back, and if you had Valbuena dropping off deeper, David Luiz would have to stick tight to close him down. Here you could see an example of Dani Ceballos, the substitute, stepping towards Bukalakis as Odegaard does track the movement of Mvia, and that's where you see David Luiz stepping in towards the Olympiacos half to deal with Fortounis. Ultimately, this overall game was about Arsenal's comfort in possession, and the manner in which they looked to attack Olympiacos was similar to previous games. They had Xhaka dropping off into that inside left position with Tierney pushing forward higher up the pitch. Out in the wider areas, Willian and Saka were adopting narrow positions. You often saw Willian dropping into that Bukalakis-Bruma gap. Olympiakos' narrow shape allowed space for the fullbacks to get into higher positions. And what we often saw was that Arsenal were looking to get overloads in those areas. For instance, when you look at the left-hand side, Xhaka would start in that inside left position to help Arsenal have 3v2 and build out of the back. But as he slowly pushed forward higher up the pitch, the only way for Olympiacos to deal with this overload is to have Bukalakis shifting across to provide cover for, let's say, Willian, so that you can have Bruma dealing with Xhaka. That would allow Lala to shift over to deal with Tierney, and if that wasn't the case, you would need Bukalakis to shift across to deal with Tierney, or you'd have to step to Xhaka, and then Bruma would have to track the movement of Tierney. Over on the right-hand side, what we ended up seeing was that Odegaard was dropping off deeper to receive the ball and carry it forward, opposed to receiving it between the lines. One of the reasons why he would look to do that is because it does enable him to pull Olympiacos midfielders out of position, and if he wasn't dropping off towards the halfway line to pick up the ball and carry it towards goal, he was drifting laterally towards the touchline, and that would create the 3v2 advantage there, as Bellerin would push forward, and Saka would look to drift centrally into an advanced position to pull away the left back and Kamara. When you break down Arsenal's key moves, they often derived from those wider areas where they try to get the overloads, and it witnessed Tierney and Bellerin pushing forward, making underlapping or overlapping runs to get into quality positions to deliver crosses into the box. Here we see Willian dropping ahead of Bruma and Tierney in an advanced left position running off the touchline for Xhaka's attempted pass between Bruma and Lala. At this moment, also focus on Odegaard unmarked ahead of the Olympiacos center backs as Kamara is ball watching. When Tierney receives Xhaka's pass, he's closed by Lala but picks out Odegaard's unmarked run into the penalty area. However, from this position, Odegaard fires a first-time effort wide of the net. Shortly after that, it's Thomas Partey sliding the ball across Valbuena for Odegaard, and he's instantly pressed by Kamara as he drifts laterally ahead of the midfield bank towards Bellerin and Saka, who are closed down. Odegaard drops the ball off to Bellerin as he continues to shift laterally towards the right touchline, and while Masouras applies tight pressure on Bellerin, he plays a forward pass to Thomas Partey stepping forward beyond Valbuena. Valbuena and Bukalakis attempt to close down Thomas Partey, but he plays a first-time ball out to an unmarked Odegaard in the right channel as Kamara is dragged central attempting to cut off a potential pass to Saka running across the left back. The issue here involves Kamara holding his position ahead of Saka to prevent a pass into the Arsenal attacking player, and that enables a 2v1 between Odegaard and Bellerin to overload Masouras down the right. And while Bellerin does a great job of placing Aubameyang into a legitimate goal-scoring position with a looping cross over Socrates, Aubameyang is ahead of Lala, but his knotted effort deflects off the center back and is pushed off the crossbar by Sa. There was a time where Odegaard picked up the ball ahead of the Olympiacos midfield bank, and he prepares to split Bukalakis and Bruma for Willian dropping ahead of Lala as Tierney storms into an advanced position down the left channel. What you end up seeing in that scenario is Bruma is focused on Xhaka's position, Bukalakis is pulled out by Odegaard, and with Willian ahead of Lala, that creates the 2v1 down the left-hand side. When Willian receives Odegaard's splitting pass, he instantly slides the ball out towards the on-rushing Tierney, and while Lala does a good job of closing down the Arsenal left back, Tierney has Aubameyang and Saka breaking towards the back post, but his delivery is cleared by Socrates. And in the build-up to the corner kick that led to Arsenal's winning goal, it's Ceballos finding Odegaard in a pocket of space between the lines, and he instantly looks to shift the ball out to Saka in a 1v1 situation with Holebas. What happens next is Odegaard looks to make an overlapping run with Saka in right half space, and it drags three Olympiacos players towards the ball as Bellerin looks to approach the penalty area. Saka ends up dropping off the ball to Ceballos, who splits Masouras and Bukalakis for Odegaard, and that's where you end up seeing a 2v1 against Holebas, with Bellerin making an underlapping run in towards the byline. But what you end up seeing there is that Arsenal have a 4v3 overload with Ceballos stepping forward beyond Kamara, as Bukalakis was tracking the play. And when Odegaard plays the ball around Holebas, that allows Bellerin to deliver a cross that is cleared for a corner, and Gabriel able to put Arsenal ahead shortly after that. So as you can see, Arteta's key tactical approach here was getting the fullbacks into higher positions and creating overloads against Olympiakos' narrow 4-4-2. Hi everybody, thanks for watching and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the InnerViews show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the InnerViews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.